All right, my friends, so for this video, I'd like you to call it 3.4 continued. The other way you could also look at it is you could call it 3.4b. That might be another way to look at it because I'm probably going to create another video here in a moment. So 3.4b, similar triangles. Whoops. Similar triangles. Please make sure you have the date here, okay? Please make sure you have the date here, and then we'll take it from there. So we did a couple of these problems previously. Now we're going to jump into a couple of different things. So once again, this video is 3.4b, and it's similar triangles. We're continuing on with similar triangles. So let's go down and look at these two triangles. And the question that I have for you is whether these triangles are similar. So are these triangles similar? Well, I don't know, because right now I'm seeing, I want really two check marks, right? So I see right here I've got a congruent pair of angles. They're both 90. But now I'm saying to myself, I can't put a check mark on the 42 and the 38. They're not the same. So I need to go out of my way and find either X or Y. I don't really know. It doesn't really matter which one you use. But I'm going to go ahead and try this guy. And I'm going to set up an equation that's equal to 180. And let's think about what those things are going to be. It's 90 plus X plus 42. Why 90? Because of that guy, right? That's 90. So we have that equaling, we have that equaling 180, hopefully. And then we want to solve that equation, okay? So here we are. Sorry about that. I was trying to just simply erase this line. It's a little ugly. Okay. So now let's solve this equation. Well, 90 and 42 together is 132. So we have 132 plus X equals 180. How do we get rid of the 132? We subtract it, yeah, on both sides. So when we subtract 132 on both sides, everything stays balanced. We're taking the same on each side of the scale. And we now have X is equal to 48. Okay? Now, if X is equal to 48, I'll draw 48 in here, right? That's good, yeah? So now that I have 48 there, can I put another check mark? Do we have another set of angles that's congruent? Yes or no? No. So since we don't have another set of a congruent, I'm going to put an X here. This is not congruent to either. Neither of those angles is congruent to 38, right? So we don't really technically have to solve the other angle, do we? We could, but we don't have to. So because this is 48 and 42, it's definitely not going to pair up with 38. 38 has no congruent pair in the left triangle. So I'm going to say yes or no on this. I'm going to say no. They're not congruent. They're not congruent angles. They're not congruent pairs, so they're not similar, is what I meant to say. They're not similar. All right? So that's where we're at. Let's continue on to the next part of the notes. Okay, so are the triangles similar? Explain. So I'd like you to pause the video and give these a try. You're looking to get two pairs of congruent angles. All you need is two pairs of congruent angles because the third angle you know will be congruent, if that's true. So try to pause the video and get just two check marks of congruent angles, okay? That's what you need to do. Give that a shot, and I'll see you in a second. So just to clarify, I'm going to put NYT, which means now you try, because I just did one for you. And I want you to try number 1, and I want you to try number 2. So pause the video and try numbers 1 and number 2. Okay? Good luck. So if you don't have an answer to the first one, number 1, why don't you pause right now, because I'm gonna reveal the answer, and I don't want to spoil it. Okay? So spoiler alert. 1, I believe, is not similar. They're not similar. So I'm not going to go into why, because this is a now you try. You're supposed to have your own work on this problem. But I want you to know that the answer is no. They're not similar. So now that you know the answer to the first problem, maybe you got it right, maybe you got it wrong. If you got it wrong, think about it for a second. If you got it right, move on to number 2. Okay? But if you got it wrong, try to think about why that's not similar. Maybe go back to the example before this. So give 2 a shot. Pause the video and give 2 a shot. So hopefully you had enough time to try numbers 1 and 2. I'm going to give you the answers, but I'm not going to show the work. So be sure that as you're working out these problems, you're showing the work to 1 and to 2. So 1 was no, sorry, and 2 is yes, they're similar, okay? So for numbers 1, they are not similar, and for number 2, they are similar. And hopefully that is okay. If not, go back and see what you need. Make sure you show work to get credit for this. Okay, so cool. So hopefully those went okay for you. Be sure to show work. I know I sound like a broken record, but if you want to get credit, you got to show work. Okay, moving on. So now we got a word. It's okay. It's just a lot of words, okay? So we got this word problem here. And let's just take it slow. Give me a second. I'm going to make this a little prettier so it's not so stressful. All right, so this example is you plan to cross a river, and you want to know how far it is to the other side. You take measurements on your side of the river and make the drawing that's shown. And let's talk about why ABC and DEC are similar. So what we really want to focus on is this diagram right here. So let's look at this diagram for a moment. I'm going to kind of make it as big as possible so that it's pretty clear. Okay, look at this diagram. So here's the first thing, okay? We have one set of congruent angles, and we need one more set of congruent angles. Can you look at the diagram and think about where there might be another set of congruent angles? Where are there another set of congruent angles? Yes?
Where C and D angle are in A and C.
So what I'm looking at is vertical angles here. I'm noticing that this angle is congruent to this angle, right? These angles are going to be congruent because they're vertical. They're across scissors. They're on an X, however you want to look at it. We now have two more sets of angles, one more pair of angles that's congruent. Do we have enough to say that these triangles are similar? Even though they didn't give us numbers. They didn't give us numbers, right? So are these triangles similar? Yes, they are, because we have two sets of congruent angles. So I would say since angle B is congruent to angle E, right? They're both 90. And angle, now here's a weird thing. I'm going to name an angle with 3 letters. I'm going to put the letter C in the center because that's the dot I'm looking at. So I want to talk about this right here. And I'm going to use the 3 letters that I would use to make it. So I'm going to say angle ABC. See what I did there? So I'm going to say angle ABC is congruent to, and now I'm going to go back here to this dot again, and I'm going to put the C in the middle, and I'm going to say angle DCE. Okay, and you see how I use that arrow to show how I got that? So angle DCE. This is how you name an angle with 3 letters, and we'll talk about that more as time goes on, because in Math 8, I'm not sure that we've seen that a lot. So this is what makes the triangle similar. 2 sets of congruent angles makes the triangle similar. Don't even need the 3rd set. There were no numbers here. You couldn't figure out the 3rd set, but we know they're congruent because of common sense. We subtract from 180, we'll get the same thing both times. What is the distance across the river? Now this is a tricky one. I'm going to erase this to make the diagram a little cleaner. So now it looks a little cleaner, right? And they said that A, B, C, and D, E, C were similar, so I think we're going to need a proportion. So what do you want to do for your proportion? What do you want to put over what? So think about what you would do if this was your thing. I am going to say that, let's see, I'm going to say that, well, let's look at this again. We know that these are congruent, and we know that these are congruent, right? So in between the 2 and the 90, see in between the 2 and the 90? In between the 2 and the 90 over here, we have 60 feet. So in between the 2 and the 90, we have 60. Let's go in between the 2 and the 90 over here, the 2 arc and the 90. That's x. We have to make sure that we pick the right side, the one that's in between the 2 arcs and the 90, because they're the corresponding sides. They match up, okay? So in between the 2 arcs, what I say is 2 arcs, this guy, right, and the 90, we have 60 and we have x. So I put 60 over x. So 60 over x equals. Now I'm going to look at what's in between the 1 and the 90. So in between the 1, these are the 1s, right? So in between the 1 and the 90, I have this angle. I have this side, rather, 50, top triangle. And in between the 1, I have 40. The 1 and the 90, I have 40. So this is the proportion we need to set up, okay? That's what we need to do. So now we need to think about this for a moment. We need to cross multiply, yes? So let's go ahead and try to crank this out. I encourage you, if you're watching at home, to pause the video and try it. But if you want to just see how it's done, then go ahead and play the video. I'm going to show you how to do it now. But I would try to pause it if you're able. So by cross multiplication, we're going to get 50x. 50 times x is 50x. And by cross multiplication here, we're going to get, well, I think I'm going to get 6 times 4, which is 24. But I have 2 zeros, right? So if I have 2 zeros, I think it's going to be 2400. Does that seem to make sense? Is that a fair assessment? Yeah, I think so. And there's reasons for that. So that should equal 2400. That's what we're dealing with. Now we have to go ahead and divide both sides by 50. And if we divide both sides by 50, we will get, let's see, how can we do this? Well, we have zeros here, so I'm going to cancel out a 0 from each. Okay? And I have x is equal to, well, I have 240 divided by 5. 240 divided by 5. I'm going to use long division. Are we comfortable with that? Hopefully. So 5 into 2 doesn't go, so I put an x there usually, or I just put a space. I like to put an x, yes?
I know what that is.
Tell us that.
48.
Cool, so you used a little trick. There is a trick for dividing by 5, in the sense that 5 times 8 is 40, but half of 8 is 4, yeah? In the sense that 5 times, I don't know, 12 is 60, and half of 12 is 6. In the sense that 5 times 90 is 450.
What? What?
Yeah, 5 times 90 is 450.
But it's hard
Because half of 90 is 45, and you add a 0. So what's 5 times 10? Well, half of 10 is 5, add a 0, 50. What's 5 times 12? Half of 12 is 6, add a 0, 60. Okay? So here's the deal. We're going to have 5 down here. We're going to have to divide into 24. That goes in 4 times. Gives us an answer of 20. And 5 into 40 is 8. So x is equal to 48. And I think we had units on that. So x is equal to 48 feet. So that is where we can end the video for today. Thank you for your attention, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.